You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and the storm that stopped the Yankees-Nationals game yesterday seems to have relocated to directly over my house. It is thundering and raining like a bandit outside. So, nothing I can do about it. Blame Mother Nature. Regardless, there's a lot to get into today, and I will start with opening day, Yankees-Nationals. It's been a long time coming. Really happy to see the Yankees back. And look, I'll go chronologically through the game because I watched every pitch. I was in to every pitch. You know, there was a part of me that thought I was going to have a tough time getting into this season because it's only 60 games, and maybe it's because there was nothing else going on yesterday, but I was into this game like crazy. It was funny, my mom wanted to talk to me about stuff, and it's like, no, you do not talk to me now! I've waited over 200 days for this! Obviously, I said it a lot nicer than that, but that was the gist of it. Dr. Fauci throwing out the first pitch was a nice touch. It was a good thought, but holy moly, that will go down in first pitch infamy. You can't do it much worse than that. I mean, I understand he has more important things to deal with right now, but come on, you're a baseball fan, Doc. You've got to do better than that. That was 50 Cent-esque. That was Baba Booey-esque. That was Carly Rae Jepsen-esque. One of the worst first pitches in the history of baseball. And I thought what these teams did before the national anthem was great. Kneeling before the anthem while holding that black ribbon. That was really nice. I did like that. Really, really classy move. That's a better way of protesting police brutality than kneeling during the anthem. Like, I'll tell you. I'll jump to Dodgers-Giants for a minute. What was the point of guys like Kapler, Yastrzemski, and Betts kneeling during the anthem if they had already protested police brutality? What's the point of doing both? That makes no sense. Literally 0 sense. So it just furthers my point that the act of kneeling during the anthem is not a good way of protesting police brutality. It's not what that act means. It's just not. Mookie Betts gets over $300 million. He's an African American, and he's making more than 99% of his Caucasian colleagues. Yeah, he has it really tough here. But back to the Yankees, there were a few things that caught my eye. Judge and Stanton producing. I mean, this is what you want to see as a Yankees fan. You want to see those two guys clicking on all cylinders, having games where they both look like MVPs, and boy oh boy did they. Judge with the big double to score Tyler Wade all the way from first. Wade scored in just a little over 10 seconds. I mean, that was really impressive. Watching it live, I was wondering if Wade would try it. Phil Nevin was aggressive, and it worked. When I first saw the Yankees opening day roster, I thought Wade was going to be the designated pinch runner, and Estrada was going to be their primary utility infielder. Evidently, Wade's their primary utility infielder, and you know what? He showed why. If Wade can get his bat going, he's going to be a really good player in this league for a long time. Stanton with the big 2-run home run to start the game off for the Yankees. They never trailed. I mean, once you give Gerrit Cole a lead, you feel really confident. The Yankees haven't had a guy like that in a long time. Even Severino, you didn't feel this comfortable with. I mean, I'd be comfortable with Cole protecting just a 1-0 lead. I mean, Stanton hit a monster shot. 460 feet or something like that. Right off the crack of the bat, you knew it. You knew it was gone. One other thing I liked was the 2-out single by Stanton. A lot of times last year, especially in the playoffs, the Yankees weren't getting that big hit. They had runners in scoring position with 1 man out or 2 men out, and they just weren't getting it done. Stanton with the big single. They were going station to station. Gardner strikes out because why is Brett Gardner batting 5th? Terrible decision there. I'd rather have Hicks hit 5th, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm not a big Hicks fan, but he's a better 5-hitter than Gardner. But Stanton really impressed me yesterday. How could you not be happy with his performance? I mean, when this Yankee lineup gets going, and I don't know how long it's going to take. Maybe it'll take a week, a couple weeks, maybe a month, or maybe they get clicking in October. But once all of these guys, these 9 guys, with the exception of Wade because he's going to be replaced by LeMahieu, when those 9 guys are all clicking, that lineup is just as good, if not better, than any lineup in baseball. They just need the pitching to help them out. And Gerrit Cole did exactly what you wanted him to do as a Yankee fan. He tried to establish his fastball early. It wasn't working. He just wasn't locating it well. He was still getting some swings and misses, but not a lot. He was falling behind a lot of hitters. And it was funny. I was watching a show that Cole did with David Cohn and Jack Curry of the Yes Network. And one of the points that they hit on was the ability of a pitcher to adapt. If you don't have your fastball working, how are you going to get through this game? Well, Cole went to his breaking stuff. And he was fantastic. He only made one bad pitch, and that was to Adam Eaton. Other than that, he was close to perfect. Such an encouraging sign for Yankees fans to see how this team played yesterday. On the Nationals side of things, Scherzer did not look good. He had his strikeout stuff working. He had 11 strikeouts. Scherzer recorded 16 outs yesterday. 11 of them were by strikeouts. Think about that. That's pretty impressive. The thing is, he gave up 4 runs. I mean, that's what means more than anything. You gotta put points on the board. It's just that simple. Doesn't matter how many strikeouts you get. What matters is the runs. Also, Scherzer led a lot of guys on base. He gave up 6 hits, 4 walks, 10 base runners total. That's not good. This is a Yankee lineup that when you allow runners on with one swing, they can make you pay. You start with Judge with the RBI double. And one thing that made me so happy, I'll go back to Stanton. One thing that made me so happy was the station to station. It was that small ball mentality. That works. Obviously, guys like Judge and Stanton and Torres and Sanchez should be able to hit the ball out of the park. And it's good that they do. But sometimes you're not going to be able to. You're not going to hit a home run every at-bat. And every time your team needs you to drive a runner in, you're not going to be able to hit a home run. But you can get hits. You can move runners over. And to see Stanton with the RBI single, that was so great to see. I mean, think about how the Yankees got to that point. Urshela walks, Wade hits an infield single, Hicks moves the runners over, Judge strikes out, Torres walks. So it's bases loaded, 2 out for Stanton. Would I have liked a home run? I'd have taken it. Of course I would have. But a single works too. Drive runners in. That's the most important thing. When you have the bases loaded, I don't care if it's 2 outs. I don't care if it's 1 out. I don't care if it's nobody out. You have to score at least 1. Preferably 2. But I'll settle for 1. Especially with Gerrit Cole on the mound. And that's what Stanton did. The fact that Stanton was able to get RBIs with small ball and big ball, if I can use that term, was such an encouraging sight. But like I said, Scherzer did not look good. Obviously, the long layoff didn't help him. I wouldn't go crazy yet, Nationals fans. Obviously, this isn't an encouraging sign. It's okay if you're a little nervous about it because, again, 60 games. Every game is so important. But you'll have Strasburg pitching tomorrow. You'll have Corbin. You'll have Sanchez. You'll be fine. Don't worry. I also saw some Nationals fans going crazy about how this lineup was only able to get 1 hit. Yeah, that's not a good sign, but a couple things. Number 1, Gerrit Cole was on the mound. Alright, this guy is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. It's okay if he makes you look like minced meat. If it's some schmagegi making you look terrible, yeah, that's when you have an issue. But if Gerrit Cole kills you, that's okay. And also, Juan Soto being out puts a huge monkey wrench into that lineup. I mean, realize you had Andrew Stevenson in the lineup yesterday on opening day. There's no way on this earth that Andrew Stevenson should be starting on opening day in a perfect world. I don't want to kill the guy, but That lineup would look a lot better with Soto in there than Stevenson. It just would. I wouldn't go crazy, Nationals fans. You guys are set up well for the long run. Especially with the expanded playoffs. Don't worry, you guys are fine. You'll make the playoffs. I promise you that. I'll get into the expanded playoffs in a minute. I do want to talk about Giants-Dodgers. And, of course, the big story here, Clayton Kershaw scheduled to start. He gets scratched because of a stiff back. So Dustin May is pressed into action. First time a rookie has started on opening day for the Dodgers since Fernando Valenzuela did it in 1981. What's interesting about the 81 start is Valenzuela wasn't supposed to start that game. It was supposed to be Jerry Royce, but Royce got hurt. That's why Valenzuela started. So history repeated itself almost 40 years later. And you have to love what you saw from May as a Dodgers fan. Yes, he gave up 7 hits. Alright, he made you sweat. But he got out of it. It's okay if you're going to give up hits, but you can't let those runners score. And May didn't. He only gave up 1 run. I thought he did a really good job. I thought the Dodger bullpen did a great job, pitching 4 2/3 innings of 1-hit baseball. They didn't give up a single run, no walks, and the 1 hit was given up by Brusdar Graterol in the 9th inning when it was already 8-1. I mean, that single meant nothing. Literally nothing. You remember how I said that the Yankee lineup, when all those guys are clicking, is just as good as any in baseball? You can say the same thing about the Dodgers. The way that they're doing this lineup is really interesting. They're going to alternate depending on the starter. If a righty is starting, like Johnny Cueto, they're going to go lefty-righty, 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 lefty-righty. If a lefty's starting, it's righty-lefty, 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 righty-lefty. Now that's good in theory, but you need to have the guys to do it, and the Dodgers do. Every Dodger starter, with the exception of Austin Barnes, got a hit. You want to tell me it was a disappointing first game for Mookie Betts? I get it. He struck out twice, left 4 runners on, only got a single. Yeah, I get it. But see, here's the thing with having a guy like Betts in the lineup. If you're an opposing pitcher, you have to respect him. There are no easy outs in this Dodgers lineup. Maybe with the exception of Austin Barnes. Maybe. I mean, Cueto couldn't take a deep breath. There's a reason Cueto was relying so much on deception yesterday. He didn't trust his stuff to beat these Dodgers hitters. And you know what? He was right not to. Now, what Cueto did worked. He only gave up 1 run. But it's kind of interesting that a veteran pitcher like Johnny Cueto relied so much on quick pitches and deceptions, crazy movements, stuff like that, to try to keep the Dodgers lineup off balance. You're going to need your whole arsenal working if you want to beat these guys. And for all the press that guys like Betts and Bellinger and Seager get, it was Kike Hernandez who was the MVP for the Dodgers yesterday. I mean, that's the beauty of this lineup. It could be anyone who kills you. I mean, it was the 6-hitter who went 4 for 5 with 5 RBIs and a home run. He was insane. He busted the game wide open with the 2 RBI single to make it 4-1 Dodgers. Right then, you knew this game was over. The Giants weren't going to score 3 runs on the Dodger bullpen. That just wasn't going to happen. But then the Dodgers kept hitting. When you score 5 runs in the 7th inning and 7 runs in the 7th and 8th innings combined, you have a great chance of winning the game. The Giants' bullpen was dreadful. Tyler Rogers looked anemic. Danny Jimenez looked dreadful. Connor Menez looked abysmal. This is a far cry from those Giants teams that won 3 World Series last decade. They're going to be bad for the next few years or so. I feel for you, Giants fans. And I also don't think you have a good manager in Gabe Kapler. And this has nothing to do with him kneeling. I just don't think he's a good manager. I didn't like him in Philly. I didn't like the hire. I don't like Farhan Zaidi. I don't think he knows what he's doing. He's a sabermetric guy. I don't like sabermetrics. So, like I said, I feel for you, Giants fans. Moving on now to the expanded playoffs for Major League Baseball. And I texted my friend Mark this. He asked me if I was going to do a season preview a couple days ago, and I said no. With a 60-game season, I don't feel comfortable doing it. And he called me during the rain delay yesterday, and we got to talking about the expanded playoffs. And I told him, yeah, now do you see why I didn't want to do a season preview? I mean, this season has the biggest asterisk on it that a season has ever had. Ever. In any sport. It's bad enough you have a shortened season. Alright, I can live with that. We've had shortened seasons before. But we haven't had a season with this many rule changes. And a playoffs that features half the league making it. In fact, more than half the league. We're going to have 16 teams making it. There are only 30 teams in Major League Baseball. Look, I understand you want to try to make some revenue up. Alright, you're losing a lot of money with there being no fans in the stands. I understand that. But there is something called the purity of the game that these owners do not care about. That Manfred doesn't care about. That the players don't care about. Baseball is a sport where you have to be really, really good to make the playoffs. It's not like basketball or hockey where you can get by with a 500-ish record. In some cases, under 500. Football, you have that sometimes. And that's a little bit of an issue, but it's not as bad, alright? We see teams with winning records in football not make the playoffs. Baseball, the 89-win Mariners 2 years ago didn't make the playoffs. The Yankees, in my lifetime, have never had a losing record. Under this setup, I don't think they've ever missed the playoffs. Those lean years of last decade would never happen. Think about it this way. You're going to see teams with 25 wins making the playoffs. 25 wins! And you're making the playoffs. This is a joke. And you're going to announce this 4 hours before the start of the Yankees-Nationals game. I understand the deadline was technically Max Scherzer's first pitch. But don't you want to give people a little more advance notice? I mean, I feel bad for people in the media who did season previews. And they went through the playoffs. Now they look like idiots. Thank God that I didn't do it. Really. No one looks smarter than me right now. This is a joke. This is an absolute joke. If you don't know the specifics of the expanded playoffs, I'll tell you. You're going to have the first and second place teams in each division make the playoffs. After that, the next 2 best teams in each league are making the playoffs. So again, each league is going to have 8 playoff teams for a total of 16. The top seed in each league will play the 8 seed, 2 will play 7, 3 will play 6, and 4 will play 5. It was initially reported as the top seed may get a bye, or it may be able to pick its opponent. That's not going to happen. And that's good. In this new wild card round, you'll have a best of 3 series with all games being played at the higher seed's home ballpark. So let's say the Yankees finish with the best record in the American League, and the Seattle Mariners are the 8th seed. The Mariners will travel to the Bronx to play 3 straight games. No off days, no travel days, nothing. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't like that. I just don't think that's fair to the lower seed. I understand why they're doing it. They want to limit travel. But you know how else you'd limit travel? By not making the playoffs a farce! This is a joke. This season is such a joke. Man, I'll tell ya, I'm gonna have such an easier time watching the NHL and the NBA than I am Major League Baseball, because they have made this season a joke. They have made it a sideshow. I understand that you have the luxury of throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. But with that comes the fact that you're turning the season into a farce. The asterisk just keeps growing and growing and growing to the point that it's unavoidable. I've said this before, and people have said I'm crazy. I stand by it. There's a part of me, a small part of me, but it does exist, that doesn't want the Yankees to win the whole thing this year. Obviously, I'll be happy if they win. I'll get the t-shirt. But I just don't want them to have this asterisk. It's one thing if there's a shortened season. We've had that before. These are rule changes that change the fabric of baseball. This isn't what Alexander Cartwright envisioned. This isn't what Ban Johnson envisioned. This isn't what Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis envisioned. This is a joke. This is a sideshow. Rob Manfred is the worst commissioner in all of sports. In breaking news, the Toronto Blue Jays have found a home They will play their home games in Buffalo at Salin Field. That is official. We knew that Pittsburgh had fallen through. They tried Camden Yards, and evidently that was moving too slow for their liking. The mayor of Hartford said that the Blue Jays could play there, but that would have been a minor league stadium also. Buffalo is a lot closer to Toronto than Hartford is. So, even though the Blue Jays didn't want to play their games at a minor league facility, those are the cards that they've been dealt. It's going to be interesting to see how close to code Salin Field will get. It's obviously not going to be Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park or Wrigley Field or anything like that, but it'll be something. They have a little bit of time to get that stadium up to code. Their first home game is Wednesday. So now that it's official, contractors can hustle their bustles over to Salin Field and get this done. I don't know if they'll be able to, but hey, at least the Blue Jays know where they'll be playing. They'll be the Buffalo Blue Jays. Speaking of new team names, and I'll do this really fast, the Seattle Kraken. I don't like that name. I'm not a big Stan Fischler fan, as you know, but he had proposed to name the Seattle Sockeyes, like sockeye salmon, and it sounds like a fighting term, like you sock someone in the eye. That actually would have been good. I like that. The Kraken, I'm not crazy about. I also don't like their logo with the S. It doesn't look that good to me. I like the anchor that they have with the Space Needle in the middle. That's really good. And I like their color scheme. That's good. But the Seattle Kraken, I just don't like that as much as Seattle Sockeyes. Also, the Washington Redskins are officially dead. As it stands right now, they're going to be the Washington football team until they can find a suitable nickname. So, good job by the Washington football team of committing to the rebrand. They're not going to drag their feet. They're going to get it done. Better late than never, I guess, in realizing that it offended a lot of people. Okay, on to Jamal Adams. And it's really amazing to me how in the span of a year, you can go from being the best player on the team, a franchise cornerstone, a guy who the Jets were going to build around, to now being the biggest locker room cancer that you can possibly have. He went scorched earth on an interview with Manish Mehta of the Daily News, everyone's favorite Jets beat writer. He accused the Jets of lying to him. Joe Douglas said that he was gonna give him a contract offer, and he never did. His stance has changed a bunch of times. Read the article. It's worth reading. I'm just trying to summarize it as best I can. Adams then went on to say that Adam Gase isn't a good leader. He wouldn't address the team at halftime. Blah, blah, blah. You know, at the end of the day, this is just a disgruntled player saying stuff to a member of the media that hates the Jets. Even though Manish Mehta covers the Jets, there is no doubt in my mind that he hates them. And it's pretty clear that Jamal Adams hates the Jets just as much. This guy can say that he wanted to come back. You know, he's a hard worker, he loves the Jets, blah, 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 he loves the city, he loves the fans, whatever. That's all BS. If you love the team that much, you would have never done this. Never. You're allowed your feelings, but don't go public with it, you piece of garbage! Let me tell you, if the Jets have any pride, they'll get rid of him tonight. Don't even wait for a Godfather offer. Get rid of him now. Send a message that this conduct is unacceptable. And if you're going to do this, you're going to be off the team. Now, I know what you're going to say. That's a good thing to be off the Jets. Screw you! For starters, that's my team. I understand that they've been a laughingstock recently. Third longest active playoff drought in the NFL, behind two teams that I think are going to make the playoffs this year, in the Browns and Buccaneers. I get that. But you know how you change it? By instituting a culture that's conducive to winning. And keeping guys around who pull these stunts in Jamal Adams isn't conducive to winning. Get his ass off this team now! You've won nothing in this league. You're a strong safety, for God's sake. You play the least important position on defense. You think you're one of the best defensive players in the league? Go out and prove it! Make the playoffs! If you were as good as you thought you were, the Jets would have won a Lombardi trophy by now. Don't even let him report to training camp. Keep him away from the team. I don't care how you do it. Whether you trade him, whether you hire private security so he never sets foot on the premises, you do not let him anywhere near the other Jets. Trade him now. I gotta tell you, there's a part of me that doesn't even care what the Jets would get. If they could only get a 7th round pick for him, there's a part of me that would be okay with it. I still think the best offer is Gallup, Diggs, and a third. See, now the Jets will be lucky to get that. Here's the thing with how Joe Douglas managed this situation. Forget the contract offers. I have no idea if that's true or not. But he had the opportunity to trade Jamal Adams earlier, and he didn't. He had the opportunity to trade him before his trade request went public, and he didn't. He had the opportunity to trade Jamal Adams after his trade request went public, but before he went scorched earth. But Douglas didn't trade him. Now, what kind of an offer are the Jets going to get? They're not going to get equal value. They may get close to it. Maybe. If they can spark a bidding war, maybe they can get close to it. But they won't get a Khalil Mack type offer. I'll be stunned if they get my ideal package of Gallup, Diggs, and a third. But you know what? There's a part of me that doesn't even care anymore. But with every fiber of my being, I will say this: Jamal Adams, get the hell off my football team. Alright, it's time to finish up the second round of decades of dumbass decisions. We're on where the 4-5 matchups would be if all the favorites advanced. And I'll start with the Yankees. It's the 2010 to 2019 postseasons versus the 2004 ALCS. Last decade, the Yankees did something that they hadn't done in 100 years. They went a whole decade without making the World Series. They had some tough losses there. 2010, they lost to the Rangers in the ALCS. 2011, they lost to the Tigers in the ALDS. 2012, they got swept by the Tigers in the ALCS. 2015, they look lifeless against the Astros in the wild card game. 2017, they lose in 7 games to the Astros in the ALCS. 2018, they lose in 4 games to the Red Sox in the ALDS. And last year, they lost in 6 games to the Astros in the ALCS. As a Yankee fan, you get accustomed to winning. And when you go a long period of time without winning, that's going to rub a lot of Yankee fans the wrong way. This past decade has been brutal. That's going up against the 2004 ALCS, as we all know. The Yankees are up 3-0 on the Boston Red Sox. All they have to do is win one more game, and they win the pennant and probably beat the Cardinals in the World Series. Instead, they lose 2 extra-inning heartbreakers. Dave Roberts and David Ortiz cementing themselves as hated figures throughout eternity among Yankee fans. Game 6, they lose. Game 7, Kevin Brown starts, doesn't make it out of the second inning. Javier Vasquez, first pitch he throws out of the bullpen. Johnny Damon hits a grand slam, and that's it. Losing to your arch rival in that way, becoming the first team in baseball history to blow a 3-0 series lead is worse than those postseasons. See, those postseasons, there were some series there where the Yankees were not the better team. The Yankees were the better team in 2004. At least going into it, that's what I thought. All they had to do was win one more game. Even if you are not the better team, you should be able to win 1 game out of 4. The Yankees couldn't. They etched themselves in baseball history. Moving over now to the Islanders, we have another tough one. Yesterday was really tough for the Islanders. This one is almost as tough. Steve Sterling for Peter Laviolette versus Thomas Vanek. Laviolette leads the Islanders to the playoffs in back-to-back years, but Mike Milbury decides to fire him because he supposedly lost the locker room. He's replaced by Steve Sterling. Sterling was a terrible Islanders coach. In the playoff series that he coached, the Islanders got shut out 3 times. Game 2, Game 4, and Game 5 against the Lightning. He didn't even make it out of his second season. He was fired for Brad Shaw. There's a reason that Sterling has never gotten another head coaching opportunity in the NHL, and Peter Laviolette went on to win a Stanley Cup. That's all I'm going to say. That's going up against Thomas Vanek. The Islanders make a blockbuster move to get Tavares, a true left winger. Vanek, Tavares, and Okposo. It should have worked. It was a good idea. And Vanek played well. He just chose not to re-sign with the Islanders. I mean, the Islanders gave up a lot for Vanek. A fan favorite in Matt Molson, who had fallen on hard times. He wasn't playing well that season, but still, the fans really liked him. And they gave up their first and second round picks in the 2015 draft for only 4 months of Vanek. The thing is, when I think back, Thomas Vanek had a lot of good moments with the Islanders. Like, he played really well for them. He was almost a point-a-game player. 44 points in 47 games. It was a good idea. Vanek was just a piece of garbage and didn't want to re-sign with the Islanders. Steve Sterling, when I think back, I can't think of a single good moment that he had. Sterling is worse. I thought about giving this to Vanek. It was hard, but when I came up with the objective methodology of good moments, Sterling pulled away. Moving on now to the Jets, we have the 2004 divisional round versus Rich Kotite. That game is known in Jets lore as the Doug Brien game. Brien had previously won a Super Bowl with the 49ers, and he kicked a clutch field goal in overtime against the Chargers to send the Jets to the divisional round against the Steelers. There wasn't a Jets fan on earth that didn't have faith in Doug Brien. But in the fourth quarter, in the span of 5 minutes of game time, Brien missed 2 field goals that, if he had hit, would have sent the Jets to the AFC title game. That's going up against Rich Kotite. Kotite, in his 2 seasons with the Jets, was abysmal, seems like an understatement. He was dreadful, he was terrible, he was anemic, whatever word you want to use. He went 4-28 as Jets head coach. The irony is that Kotite was actually a good coach for the Eagles. They made the playoffs once under him. His worst year was 94, the year before he went to the Jets. They went 7-9. That's not bad. It should have worked. It didn't. Those Jets teams were some of the worst teams in, forget Jets history, maybe NFL history. When you go 1-15, it doesn't get much worse than that. All I'm going to say is thank God for the Arizona Cardinals. The one team that the Jets beat in 96. Ultimately, while the 2 missed field goals by Brien were terrible moments, it was just one game. The Rich Kotite Jets had many more moments that just made you facepalm as a Jets fan. He set them down a path of misery that not even Bill Parcells was able to pull them out of. I mean, keep in mind, Parcells was Jets head coach for 3 years. In only one of those years did the Jets make the playoffs. I understand that year they made the AFC title game. They should have beaten the Broncos. They just couldn't stop Terrell Davis. But 1 postseason appearance in 3 years? That's not that good. Also, the way he ended the 97 season was terrible. Kotite is worse. It's close. It's closer than I first thought it was going to be. But I'm going to say that Kotite edges out the Doug Brien game by a 55-45 mark. Moving over to the Nets, we have Dennis Hobson versus the Boston Celtics trade. Dennis Hobson was the third overall pick in the 1989 NBA draft. 2 picks after that, Scottie Pippen was drafted. Hobson only spent 5 seasons in the NBA. Ironically enough, he actually won an NBA title with the Chicago Bulls. I mean, Hobson just couldn't shoot threes. He wasn't a bad mid-range scorer, but it would have been really nice to have Scottie Pippen. And the Boston Celtics trade, we all know it. Pierce, Garnett, Jason Terry, and DJ White for a package of players and control of 4 Nets first-rounders that were ultimately used by the Celtics on James Young, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kyrie Irving. The Boston Celtics trade is much, much, much worse than Dennis Hobson. It's not even close. I mean, that trade set the Nets down a dark path that it took Sean Marks a while to pull out of. Thank God for the good kind of Marxism. I hope you have a good weekend. You can finally watch baseball. The weekend will just fly by. Until Monday, I am Jacob Valk saying that I'd rather have Grover Cleveland Alexander pitch a crucial game for me drunk than anyone I've ever known sober. He was that good.